having moved from after moving from Bangalore, working with Wipro, and then I moved to Sun Microsystems in the US. At that point of time, I realized that what's much more important than just be able to write a high quality code is to understand the requirements of the market and to address the market. Okay, and with that concept and with that thought in mind, when I came back to India, I started off a couple of, I did my own startups, a couple of them. They are doing quite well at this point of time. And then there was this very similar thought to what, the Kerala Startup Mission has and what Malabar Angels have. We felt that there are a lot of HNIs and VHNIs in India who don't understand the space. I mean, forget about understanding the startup space. Many of them have not even invested in the stock market. They are their investments are either primarily in their own business or in land or in gold. I mean, these are the three asset classes that they're familiar with and they're comfortable with this and they don't want to step outside it. So we felt that it is important for someone who understands them and also understands the startup space to come as a bridge and manage their funds in a very professional manner and give them the returns which makes them comfortable in investing more and more into this area. I will, and I'm going to focus this talk, more on what's the difference between an angel investor and between a VC. Okay, I'm sure almost everyone has heard of the huge successes that various companies have had in the Indian startup. This thing, I think this year alone we have 40 plus unicorns which are there. So, and everyone knows Baiju, everyone knows the Flipkarts and the Olas and so on. So the fact that the startups are making a lot of money is known to a lot of people. But how do you participate in this? I mean, how do you get to be a part of an Ola, or how do you get to be a part of a Flipkart or Baiju's or anything else? So that's something. Sorry, was that okay? Sorry. I'll spend a little bit of time on that. I'll spend a little bit of time on the difference between the various these things. If time permits, I'll also talk about a couple of investments that we have made and how that, with that you can probably understand what is it that VCs actually look for. Okay. So this I have taken actually from the Indian government website, www.startupindia.gov.in. This shows the path that a company takes, the startups take. So when it is initially, when a company starts off originally, you will see that there are three types of entrepreneurs typically. Okay, one set of entrepreneurs are those because they have heard of the success stories of the various unicorns, the Paytms and so on and so forth. They say everyone, a lot of people seem to be doing startups and they seem to be making a lot of money. Let's also try it out. I mean, what they don't realize is that for every successful startup, there are 9 or 10 complete failures, and maybe another 15, 20 also rans who are not failures, but did not make it very big. But they get attracted by this, and then they jump into this without understanding what's involved. The second kind of entrepreneur are those who have some domain expertise. They've worked in large companies. They understand a particular domain. They've been working in that field for some time. And now they feel that maybe they can strike out on their own and build a similar company or build a subset of the company that they're currently working in and making a lot of money in that. The third category of entrepreneurs, there are probably more, but I'm talking about the majority will fall under these three categories. The third category are a few friends, typically in college or immediately after college. They get together, They say we want to do a startup. They brainstorm. They come up with various ideas. They try to validate whether those ideas make market sense or not. They narrow down on one or two ideas, and then they start up. They go about building that company. The first challenge that all of them will face is how to cross this valley of death, right? The place where most of the companies fail. I mean, typically 80% of the companies actually fail in the early stage. Now there are a few things that one need to I'm talking now uh, from the perspective of an entrepreneur. So a typical entrepreneur who wants to cross this valley of death should either go for uh, what is known as a fail fast model. That is, if they're going to fail, they better fail early. And fail doesn't mean shutting down the company. It may be that one particular idea did not take off, so let's shelve that idea and then go to idea number two, or modify the offering in such a way that it can become more attractive. But that, instead of just sitting in the in your own bubble and creating more and more code, or creating more and more products, and creating more and more services, how do you get a minimum viable product or service out in the market and see what the reaction of customers or potential customers are to that? Get that feedback, decide to either ditch it or decide to modify it and make it better, and then move fast. So this is the speed of reaction, how well you're able to you know gauge the feedback from the market. That's one very important characteristics at this point of time. A second way of crossing the valley of death is, this is typically for the second kind of entrepreneur who have domain expertise, have been working in the field. They they normally, the ones which are successful there, they identify an anchor customer. They find someone who they have built up a personal relationship with, or they're able to convince that they have the capabilities to deliver what they want, and give it to them at a very cheap rate, or at a very market competitive rate, and be upfront with them, saying that we will do and develop this as per your requirement. So there may be a few hiccups on the way, but then you are our most important customer. You get the highest priority. Whatever problems you face, we will take care of it first, and then use that anchor customer to build a viable product, and then go and find other customers. And because there is a revenue coming from this anchor customer, it becomes easy for them to cross this valley of death and then get to revenue from other customers, where you can price higher, where you can make better margins, and so on. The third thing that the entrepreneurs need to be very careful about is to get investors and be very selective about what kind of investors you take money from. A lot of people come to me, to take advice when they start their companies, or they come to me after they get into some problem and say, please help us out, and so on. And in my experience, I mean, and this is not a general thing, but most of the cases, the worst kind of investors are real estate developers. I mean, I'm sorry if there are some real estate developers here, and this may not be applicable to you, but I will basically, instead of using that, let me categorize their thought process. So for them, I buy a piece of land, and even if I don't do anything, let's say the market is doing bad, what I do is I stop construction halfway through, no problem, right? When the market builds up, when the demand picks up again, I'll continue my development at that point of time. And they feel that the same thing can be done with any company. And that for a product company, or for a for a IT services kind of a company, uh, they can't just pause in the middle, because there is a cost involved even in pausing, and that's the biggest drain. Because unlike a real estate project where the highest amount of money is in the land and the building material, here the largest drain of money is in the salary. And if you lose your best employees, then your company might as well shut down. So you can't revive a company after putting it in cold storage for 6 months or 8 months. So that's just not possible. So one need to sit with the investor, talk to the investor, try to understand the investor a lot better, and then only take money from them. Of course, going through an angel network is a way of avoiding such problems, because the angel networks will typically take care of these issues. They would have done a sensitization of the HNIs in terms of what's involved. They'll also act as a layer which will help convince the people, saying that this is not the way to do it. Now, looking at it from the perspective of the HNI or the angel investor, again talking about the valley of death. Okay, the the angel investors are typically investing in startups in their loss making phase. And one thing that you need to keep in mind is that entrepreneurs are by nature optimists, and they have to be. If they're not optimists, they would not have been an entrepreneur. They would have been in their typical salaried career. So they always will project a growth, or the their profits in a highly favorable way. And it's not that they're trying to cheat the angel investors. They really believe it. They believe that they can make it. But the realities of the market and realities of the competition will mean that they would most likely not be able to meet their own expectations, their own plan, their own projections. So a good angel investor will always keep some money in the back pocket as a stash, so that if I've invested in, let's say, five startups, and one of those startups is showing a lot of promise, but their loss making period is coming out to be more than what was originally proposed. So this money in the back pocket should help them cross that, so that they don't end up going to the VCs or the next level of investors um, with a with a deadline, or with looking at the closing of company right in front of them. And we have dealt with multiple companies, and it's always the people who have that additional support and have that additional money in the bank, which can keep them running even if the investment gets delayed. Sometimes the new investor will say, oh, we will put money in a month, we'll put money in 2 months, and the whole process of investing may take much more time. And hence having that additional buffer with the angel will help both the angel as well as the entrepreneur in getting over the value of death. So I put this up mainly to talk about the value of death, because once it crosses that, once it gets into the next round of investments, things typically will go smooth. I mean, the percentage of failures are much lower, and there are multiple people now backing the company who will somehow come and make sure that the company is able to not only survive but thrive. Okay, so what's the basic difference between an angel investment and a venture capital this thing? Okay, first thing we need to understand is what is the motivation to invest. So an angel comes in to participate in the startup ecosystem with a low investment, comparatively low investment. Okay, they mostly may want to be involved in companies in certain domains where the investor has already got some experience, or is interested in, because of various reasons, because their son is doing something similar, they know about this, they've read about some things, they've studied a particular area and want to participate in that. And obviously they want to benefit from the quick growth and valuation of successful startups. Even though I have not put it down here, normally for angel investors and even for the early stage venture capital investors, we recommend that they should not invest more than 10% of their uh, disposable assets into this field, because if they suddenly need money for some this thing, they will not be able to withdraw the money, unlike a stock market investment or any other investment. And always diversification in investment is good. And we don't want someone to come and invest with us if they're saying that here is 75% of the money that I have. We discourage them from investing with us. We say, you put it in some safer markets. When you have more money, then come back and we will take your capital. So an early stage venture capital, on the other hand, looks at a company which already has a proof of concept. Okay, from the proof of concept stage, and each venture capital company may define this stage in different terminologies or in different ways. They may look at things in different ways. For Mount Judi, for example, what we consider, the companies that we look at, we expect them to have paying customers, more than one paying customer at least, right? And we also want to see that their unit, their unit economics are positive. That is, for every additional rupee of sale they make, they don't end up spending more than 1 rupee. Now, this may be different from most of the well-known and famous, investments in the space. So I normally tell people that if Flipkart were to come to us today and ask us for investment, we'll probably tell them no, because their unit economics is negative. When they more sales they make, the more money they lose. So the only exception in this is that if there is a very clear plan on how they are going to convert this into a profit-making thing, or how they have a very definite plan which we can believe in, which will convert this unit economics to a positive unit economics, then we will reconsider it. But otherwise, we normally don't do that. So we take company from this proof of concept stage to a business which has scale, which is 10 times, 100 times more than what it is today. Go from one geography, maybe they're operating only in one city, can we now take them to all over India or outside India? And what is the motivation for us is that we look at the potential of the market for the idea. So if somebody has come to us with not just the idea, but their product or service, so how much of market do you think do we think that this particular idea or service can address? And what value add does this new company provide in that domain? So if there is a clear value addition in that, there is a big pain point that they are removing, or it's or it's something which could not have been done earlier, which can now be done, and the market size is large enough, then that's the motivation for us to go and invest in that company. And obviously for us also, we want to see the company to grow, to the valuation of the company to grow 5x 6x times, and then we also make money, the company also makes money, right? How do we evaluate a company? In the evaluation process, typically for an angel investment, the evaluation is done based on the pitch deck, the idea. It's mostly a PowerPoint presentation, with some spreadsheet backing it up, and the comfort level with the founders, right? So the angel investor should feel that these founders are trustworthy, they know what they're doing, they have the capability to deliver, and this is purely subjective and judgmental. So you go to the same entrepreneur goes to 5 different angel investors, he may get 5 different reactions, right? And the angel investor's intuition about the domain or the market that this particular person is operating in will also determine whether the he or she invests in this company or not. An example would be today, edtech has got all the buzz, especially the internet based learning. I mean, personally, we feel that it's overblown at this point, but that's not the feeling which the majority of the market has. And hence, if somebody comes with a new idea in that particular space, there may be many angels who are saying, "Oh, this is the buzz. This is what everyone is talking about. Let me put a little bit of money in this and see whether I can, benefit from that." Whereas the VC, how it looks is that it does an analysis of other companies in the same space, both in India as well as overseas. Looks at what multiples and valuation that the other companies are commanding. Okay. Then, like I mentioned in the earlier row, what's the potential of the market? What additional value does this company have? And if all these things together, we feel that the company has the potential to, give us 4x, 5x kind of a return, then we go with, I mean, this judgment of whether they'll be able to do that also depends on our internal diligence. The first thing we do is that we go and interview their customers. We do a customer survey kind of a thing, right? We talk to their employees, we talk to their vendors. We see that, from our this thing, we get a comfort level about that particular company through much more detailed study. After that, we give this to for an external diligence, and typically one of the big four kind of companies would be engaged, and they will go through all the legal paperwork, whether all the compliances have been done by this company or not, whether the accounting practices are correct, the accounting due diligence also is done. So the legal and accounting both due diligence is completed. And we also want to be sure that the founders are, flexible enough to be bound by good governance. In the initial stage, the good governance is not so important. But once a VC kind of an investor comes in, and when the next round, the company is going to raise the PE fund, governance plays a very, very important role. And the company has to show that it is not taking any shortcuts, it's not hiding things and so on. And there's no money being routed in very suspicious ways. The decisions are taken correctly, and so on. Okay. Even things like, do they have processes in place to address complaints on sexual harassment? Do they take care of diversity in the workspace? All these, and the flexibility of the founders in these. I mean, we don't expect that these things will be ready the day we invest, but we expect that they will work towards it, and within a year or so, they will have all these things in place. In terms of the diligence, angel investment is only a cursory diligence. It's too early, really, at that stage to do any, any greater depth of diligence. Whereas in the venture capital listing, it's detailed financial and legal diligence by experts. The other difference is the involvement with the company. Mostly angels will not get involved in the running of the company, and it's probably the right thing to do, because at this point of time, the company is, success really depends on the freedom that you give to the founders, how much of flexibility they have to suddenly change their plans based on the, the fast fail and things like that I mentioned. If at all angels do get involved, it's mostly in an advisory role. Whereas a VC will look at all the comments that have come in the external diligence, will want to make sure that any gaps in labor compliance and legal compliance and financial filings and all that, all those things have to be cleaned up. VC will insist on taking a seat on the board and to make sure that the things are done in a proper fashion in the company. And this is extremely crucial for the company to grow, beyond the VC investment. In terms of subsequent rounds of funding, an angel investor is not going to, typically, I mean, again, all these are general rules. There will always be exceptions. Typically, an angel investor will not go looking for the next investor. They will expect the promoter to find the next investor and to give a good exit to the angels. who have come in. Whereas in the early stage venture capital, will the VC fund like MJV will actively work with other VCs and PE funds to get the next round of investors. So we have our networks. We will start talking about this company to people who are potential investors in the next round, or other companies which may have potential of merger or buyover and all those things. So after a year or two of being involved with the company, we start these conversations so that it's prime and ready for them to get the next round of investment. The risk profile that an angel was the venture capital fund, the investor can an angel investor can take high risk because the amounts are small, and also the decision is taken regarding one's own money. So I'm not, as an angel investor, I'm not answerable to somebody else on why did I put money in company A and why did I not put money in company B, right? Whereas a venture capital fund is handling other people's money, and if we do something wrong, we are answerable to the people who have given us money. So venture capital will have relatively lower risk appetite. Obviously, we will be taking risks. That's the whole concept behind the VCs and the angels. Because if we don't take risks, then the startups don't get the funding, and the new breakthrough companies, breakthrough business models, breakthrough products will not. We will lose out on that. And we obviously will make reasonable efforts to maximize the returns for our limited partners whose money we are investing in these companies. The amount invested, again, an angel investor ideally should invest small amounts in large number of companies, because the percentage failure at this stage is 80+%. So you put money in 10 companies, you can expect that 8 or 9 of them will fail, but that 1 or 2 which succeed will probably more than make up for the failures that you've had in the other companies. And like I mentioned earlier, to cover this value of death and things like that, should ideally set aside some amount for topping up in companies that show a high potential. The venture capital, because it's got a more hands-on approach, there is a larger involvement with the company, would invest higher amounts in limited number of companies. Because if we invest in 30, 40 companies, we will not be able to do any governance control or help the companies with further investments and so on. So we'll typically limit the number of investments to 10, 15 kind of a thing. And the percentage failure is expected to be typically less than 30%. So if we invest in 10 companies, 3 of them may be total washout, but out of the other 7, 4 will give us okay kind of a return. And the 3 which makes it big is what will give returns to the LPs and to the venture capital fund. So this is a rough difference between the angel investment and early stage venture capital investment. I think we are now 25 minutes left. I can either go through, I will not go through this. On the left-hand side corner, we have the investments, the 2 companies that I talk about, Inaxel and Forbase Care. Maybe I'll just quickly take you through those 2 companies. Okay, I was hoping that I'll have a little bit more time, but since I don't have, okay, let me also take you through this this will give you an idea of how VCs look at things, right? So far, about 540 companies have approached. Actually, this is a slightly old slide. Right now, the number is closer to 600, have approached MJV. Okay, and out of which 520 have been taken for preliminary evaluation. And in this preliminary evaluation itself, we have dropped 431 out of that. Okay, and 42 of them came to the internal diligence, where we do much more detailed diligence, including this survey of customers and all those things, right? And out of this 42, only 10 of them made into our investment committee review. Okay, and in the investment committee review, out of the 10 that was taken, 5 were approved and 5 were not approved. So the five which have been approved went into term sheet and external diligence. Okay, one was dropped and one is withdrawn actually, which is not shown because it's not the latest one. Uh, and we have two companies in which we have uh, done the funding, and one currently contracting is going on. Obviously, we are not exited any fund because we are still a young VC company. It's just 1 year old. Okay, I will not get into these details also. Okay. So let me just take you quickly to the transactions that we have invested in. Inaxel is the company that we have invested. It's a medtech accelerator, and the reason why we invested in this is that it actually has very innovative medical devices which meets challenges, especially in the developing countries, uh, of providing good medical care and saving lives. Okay, their first product was something called a SaaS, which is for breath, and this is for premature babies who have respiratory disease syndrome, where their lungs are not developed enough to be able to breathe properly. And most of these babies, by the time they're taken from a nursing home or a normal hospital to a hospital which has an NICU, they either die on the way or they have brain damage and other organ damage which will impact them for life. Whereas this particular device is a portable device which can be taken even in an auto rickshaw along with the child. It has got battery backup, and it's even if the battery fails, it's got a manual way of pumping things and keeping the babies alive. Even while testing, it has saved about 40 plus lives just in their testing phase, where the doctor said that this baby would not have survived but for this particular device being there. VapCare is another product. It's the first in the world where if somebody is put into a ventilator and there is something called as a ventilator acquired pneumonia, which is due to the secretions getting into the lungs and it causes pneumonia. And once that happens, the probability of death of the patient is very high. So if somebody is ventilated for more than 2-3 days, their chance of survival becomes very low. Uh, and this particular device helps to suck out the secretion so that it doesn't get into the lungs, and it doesn't require, it saves a lot of nursing care also. And this is the first in the world for this. They also created a helmet and this thing in response to COVID, where it helps prevent the spread of COVID when you breathe out, so that your ICUs, the staff is also protected, and it also gives better oxygen saturation. And fetal light is another product for monitoring the baby in the late stages of pregnancy, based on an ECG instead of an ultrasound. So very innovative products, and we really think that they have got something which can make a big difference, not only in the developing countries, even in the developed market. So this is one company that we have invested in. There's another company which we have invested in, which is doing, what is called known as precision oncology, where you do genetic tests for cancer patients, and using the data that is obtained, they will get, right now, most of the treatments, most of the gene analysis is done for the white Caucasian population. And their genes don't match the genes that most of us have. Whereas for us, it could be a different gene, which is a trigger for the cancer and which may go undetected. Or the treatment methodology that we need to be used for us could be different from the treatment methodology that's used for the white population. So they are, well, one is they're providing the testing, and second is they're collecting the data which can be used by for research and in universities as well as by pharma companies to develop drugs which are targeted drugs. So this is the other transaction. So this is just to give you an idea of the kind of companies that we have invested in. Since we are running out of time, I think I'll just leave it open for questions at this point. Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Sherif, for the excellent session. I think you gave a lot of insights in terms of how an angel investor would look at investment and how an early stage VC looks at the investment. So I will actively request, I'll request all the participants to gather the thoughts and ask quick question one by one. You can raise your hand and maybe we'll call out your name and then you can ask your question. Meanwhile, Mr. Sherif, to begin, let me ask you a quick question in terms of this value of death and this 20/80 rule or 20/60/20 rule, where you say only 20% of the investments will, give you the returns or disproportionate returns. Right. So this is one thing that probably deters the angel investors in really investment, especially I think in a traditional society like Kerala. So what do you think people like us, who are trying to evangelize angel investment should do differently or better in the coming days in terms of, whole propagating this? Because everybody is a little bit scared, saying, look, if only 20% will give me returns and 80% would probably not succeed or would be living dead, what do I do? So what do you think we should be doing?
So one thing here is obviously to create a fund where you pool the money, right? So instead of, let's say I have, 25 lakh of rupees to invest. Now, for me to go and invest 2.5 lakhs in 10 companies is going to be difficult. First of all, identifying those 10 companies, then, doing whatever is the valuation and so on. But if this 25 lakh of rupees is taken by angel fund, right, and that angel fund is then able to invest in a pool money from, let's say, 40-50 of these angel HNIs or angel potentially angel investors, and invest in 20 companies, so that risk automatically gets shared. So that's one way of telling them that instead of you being on the you taking the full risk, you give it to us. Obviously, it need not be you. It could be any other angel investment thing, and that fund will pool the money and invest into multiple startups which show potential. So that will average out and it will give you a decent return.
So, Sherif Sahib, if you allow me, I'll just come in here, Mr. Gopalan. So the kind of returns which you talk about from these leftover companies which would do well is going to be mind-boggling. I mean, I'll just give you an example. A gentleman by the name Rehan Yar Khan invested 20 lakh of rupees in a company which was aggregating cabs in 2011, right? And that company turned out to be Ola, right? The 20 lakh of rupees went to 300 crores, right? Now, you tell me, even if he had invested 20 lakh of rupees in 10 more companies, this 300 crores, I mean, he would have paid another 22 crore of rupees in those companies, right? And he's got back 300 crores. So the payoff is way beyond anybody's imagination if you are doing your homework right. So you have to, or your advisor has to understand those companies well and then be able to suggest to you. So when people like you do it, who understand these companies slightly bit better than the normal man, that makes the difference. And this diversification, as Sherif Kottapurath said, makes the true difference.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please?
PKG, Silan here. So I have one question that are you focused on this healthcare only because what the two areas what you invested is in the healthcare arena?
Okay, so we are not focused only on healthcare. It's just that the timing soon after we started our fund, COVID hit, right? So then we had a rethink. So we have expertise in various areas. So based on the expertise that our general partners have, and to some extent our limited partners have, those are the areas that we will take. We will not take any other area, right? And so to just give a few of these things, we have very good expertise in digital and IoT. We have good expertise in alternative energy, electric vehicles, and things like that. We have expertise in healthcare. We have expertise in education segment, and a couple of others in consumer, food, and so on. For example, PC Mustafa of ID Foods is one of our general partners. So naturally, we have expertise in that area also. But we decided that because of COVID, we're going to focus on two areas. The two areas initially were healthcare as well as edtech.
Okay.
So the third company in which we are right now going through the contracting is actually in the edtech space. So that's another one that we are looking at. If there is time, I will just quickly go through that edtech deal also, even though that's not done. I'll just give you a preview of what's there. Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay, let me just show you here itself. So this is a company which actually teaches students through hands-on, experience. So they actually build drones and robotic equipment, and through which they learn the mechanics of this, they learn the electronics of this, they learn the programming of this.
Yeah.
Okay. And by putting together various things, they remember and retain the things better. Like I had mentioned probably in the passing during the presentation, we don't believe in the model that's currently being used of complete online education, where it's only videos and tests and so on, which are given online. Especially when we talk about school going children, I believe that that's not the right model. They not only lose out on some of the educational, pure educational thing in terms of the the knowledge, this thing, they also lose out on a lot of soft skills. Whereas this is a company where we felt that both the soft skills aspects as well as the technology, the STEM part of it, the science and technology and maths part of it, all of that is being covered in a very well-rounded fashion. So and we also, our investment philosophy also is that we invest in things which are socially responsible. So the two healthcare deals also, you would have seen it, and even here we believe that this is the way to do it. They also have a franchise model where the children can go share the resource. Like, so instead of every child buying a drone or a robotic kit, it can be shared between multiple students. They can also interact with each other, learn from each other. We really like that franchise model. And we also like the fact that they're able to bring the cost down to something like 3,500, which cannot be done in the pure online with a kit, because every child will have to buy a kit. And they also have some good ideas on how to use this, even to teach the normal science and maths. So because of all this, we believe that this is a good deal, and we are investing in this. So EdTech is under consideration.
Yeah. Sherif, one thing which is, we are very happy is that, we have been part of the initial angel funding of this
Correct.
startup. Okay, so that is thing. And now, what is your ticket size in terms of investment?
So we are a relatively small fund, and our ticket size would be 5 to 7 crores.
Okay.
That's about 0.75 to $1 million. If you,
Okay.
I don't know why people talk in dollar terms, but since everyone talks, I'm also saying that. But we are a rupee denominated fund, so what we invest is 5 crores to 7 crores roughly, or 5 to 7.5, you can say.
Okay. And you're an SEBI accredited fund, correct?
We are a SEBI accredited fund, yes. AIF2, category 2.
And what is the size of your fund?
It's 100 crores. It's 50 plus 50, 100 crores.
Okay. Yeah, I'm done with my questions. Thank you.
Just one related question, Mr. Sherif, and that may be very interesting to our investors, is when you invest, like you are invested in 2 and you are probably going to invest in many more, do you have a number in mind? How many X returns you want in how many years?
So typically we won't look, so ours is a 5 plus 2 year fund. So what we have promised our limited partners is that we will try and return their money in 5 years. If we are not able to do that, we may take an extension up to 2 years to completely close out. So we look at closing things in 5 to 6 years so that we can return the money, or rather 4 to 6 years. Okay. And what we look at is that we try and see that every investment that we do have a potential of giving at least 4x. Okay. Now, obviously, there are risks. Some of them may actually give us 0. Some of them may give us 2x, and some of them may give more than 4x also. But the target, if somebody comes to us with a business proposal or a plan where after 6 years we are going to get only 2x, we will not look at it. Right. So we have to have a reasonable conviction that it's possible to get us 4x returns in 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you go with the syndicated model, like, say suppose someone wants to raise probably around $5 million. So in that model, there'll be some other VC will be doing one part, so, or maybe an angel, so are you open to that concept?
Yes, absolutely. So in SP Robotic Works itself, for example, we are doing it along with Malabar and India Angels. The earlier investment that I mentioned about the genomics, this one, we are investing with 3 other funds. 2 of them are US funds, and one is a Indian fund, and we are the 4th fund. But we are leading this particular transaction.
Okay.
Okay, and it's not necessary that we'll lead all transactions. We may follow in some transactions also. Okay, but so far in whatever we have invested, we have been the lead investor, and and that's because the company has been convinced that in addition to money, we are bringing in some expertise and some connections and networks, which will benefit them more than the other VCs or other investors.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions, please?
No, I have one question. I'm P.T. George. Now, if an angel investor is the investee, is it better to invest in their own name or to form a legal entity and then invest the money through the entity?
There are a lot of aspects which come into play here. I would request Dr. Ebaad to answer this if possible.
So the situation is such that in case you are forming a legal entity, SEBI would consider this as legal entity as a fund. Now, if you are considered as a fund, you need to go and take permission from SEBI that you are a collective investment scheme, because what really happens is SEBI is an entity by the government to protect investor interests. And hence, if you are pooling money, even if it is from your 4 friends or 10 friends or 20 friends, it still has jurisdiction to go after you for that particular company. Now, if that company has some other work, like example, you 20 of you all have got together and you all are doing a particular business of trading or say manufacturing, and this investment forms a small portion of the activity of this company, then it is okay. So ideally, angel investments have to be done through your name personally, or through a fund, or through a consortium like the Angel Network, which has brought you all together.
What about trusts? I mean, you can create a trust and then invest through the trust, right? I mean,
You can still, but again, they will have a jurisdiction towards that trust as well. So you can do it, but if you get caught, then there is a things go wrong when one of the partners or one of the people will get up and say that, justice was not done to me, or these guys have taken my money away, or whatever it is. And then he has recourse to go to the, to SEBI, etc., and the whole clampdowns will start. So that's how it will function. I hope that clarifies the questions.
Thank you.
Mr. George, if it's a different question, you can rephrase and ask, but if it's answered, then that's great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
Some more questions, please.
Yeah, one question. What is it in a constitution of a secretariat? Do you have a full-time secretariat for this?
We don't. Okay, but we do have people who take care of compliances, take care of the paperwork, and so on. But that's not a full-time job. There, they do other things as well as this.
Okay. And the question is that you're getting around, you mentioned about some few thousands of things in the pipeline. That'll be a humongous amount of work to sift through all those things and then determine, what to go next. So correct. Even with our case, with some around 20, 30 things, we are struggling. So
I can understand. So we have some very, easy criteria through which the first few, the very first, this thing. So that's going down from 520 to 42. So that happens with, I would say, maybe 15 to 20 minutes on each company that we reject, not more than that.
Okay.
Because there are areas where we have no expertise. So we will just say, sorry, we don't have expertise in this. We don't, we will not invest in this particular area. Second is they are too early. They don't have a proof of concept. So again, we just send them a reject this thing. So these two will form the bulk of the rejections in the preliminary evaluation. And the third would be where we believe that their business model has, no chance of surviving and so on. That we may take a slightly more time to determine that. But those also, the biggest amount of time actually goes in the internal diligence. That the 42 companies that we have shown, the third in that stage, that's where the majority of our time goes.
Okay. And what is the criteria to be an investor, and what is the minimum ticket size in your
there are certain regulations which SEBI has put. Okay, we haven't put any additional constraints or over and above what SEBI has put. So being a category 2 fund, the minimum investment is 1 crore.
Okay.
And we take that investment over 5 drawdowns. So we ask for 20 lakhs, then maybe after 3-4 months, we'll ask for another 20 lakhs and so on, based on the deal flow. So if in a quarter, we don't have any new deals to invest, then we will not ask for money. We'll ask for money later.
Okay. Is there any management fee?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
That's how we pay our employees, right?
Okay. So is it a percentage of after the transaction, or or is it a subscription model?
It's a percentage of the asset under management.
Okay.
It's 2% in our case. But.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, you're talking about the startups in Kerala. So we do have 2 startups who have just entered into the internal diligence space from Kerala.
Oh, very good, very good.
So we are not gone into depth yet, but we will be going into depth in the next 2-3 months on those companies.
Okay. Yeah, that will be very good, because Kerala, actually, there are a lot of startups and we need a lot more capital to come inside. And you might have read the budget speech of the finance minister last week. They have just announced a 100 crore venture capital fund, Kerala government last week. Earlier they had fund of fund scheme, but I think now probably more VCs will come into Kerala and start evaluating the startups in Kerala.
And the other good news is that even in our general partners, the majority of them are from Kerala. It's not just me.
Yeah, I understand.
So we have PC Mustafa, who's from Kerala. We have Tini Philip, who's from Kerala. We have CH Abdul Rahim, who's from Kerala. So we have 3 + 1, 4. And even Singularis is a Omani company, and one of the partners there is also from Kerala. So almost more than half. So
in a lighter vein, you might give a little more weightage, I guess, for Kerala.
Our weightage is based on the criteria that we have on returns and risk and so on. Because again, if it was my money, I could have given that extra weightage. It's a fiduciary responsibility. I'm handling somebody else's money, so I have to be extremely careful.
Yeah. The thing is, we are also in the similar situation. Like, so we have made some 3 investments, and out of that, one is from Kerala, and one is in Bangalore, and one is in Chennai. Okay, so the guys here feels that you are not looking at our startups here; you are going outside Kerala.
Right.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we can conclude. Any last 1 or 2 questions, please?
I have one question, this is Arun. In evaluating all these companies inside and outside Kerala, have you found something where the Kerala startups are generally lacking or they need to improve upon as compared to the ones from the metros?
Not really. See, there are certain benefits of metros, which is that you get to interact with a lot more people. Of course, in this COVID, the last 1.5 years, that's not been a positive at all. But in general, that's the benefit that these hubs and clusters provide. And the fact that Kerala now has similar hubs, will help a lot. And the like what Mr. Gopalakrishnan has done here, inviting people to come and interact with those entrepreneurs is the way to bring them together with other people and benefit from that.
It was very informative, very interesting. And thank you so much for taking so much time out for us.
Thank you. You're welcome. And let's hope that we will have, we will have opportunity to invest in other companies where Malabar Angels have invested or Kerala Startup Mission has, played a role. It would be good to have that relationship. And we do try and keep a relationship with most of the angel networks. So, Dr. Ebaad and Ali Sherif are the right people to take things forward. If you send me a mail, it may live in my mailbox for 3-4 days before I actually forward it to them. So you can actually write to them directly and then, and
surely. I think we will be interacting more in the future.
Sure.
Any other question? Otherwise, we can conclude.
No, I was wondering if, in the other investments that they are considering, if they could look at the possibility of being a co-investor. Of course, a much smaller size, but then, like it's happening with SP Robotics, when they come across other good opportunities, if they could let us know and ask whether we would like to follow them. Is that a possibility?
That is certainly a possibility. We could look at that.
And I have one question. This is Mohiddin. Sherif, I have a question to Sherif Bhai. And this investment is only in India, or you are also looking invest in the companies which are there and outside of India?
So, unless the company has some connection with India, we don't invest. Okay. Now, the company may be headquartered outside India, but its main business or operations might be in India. So the 4Care, for example, the genetic cancer thing, it's actually headquartered in Singapore. Okay, but they have their operations in Bangalore. They have their operations in other cities in India also. That's limited to about 20% of our total fund size. We could potentially invest in such companies. 80% will be 100% Indian companies, where it's headquartered here as well as the operations. No, the operations could be anywhere. Sorry, if it's headquartered in India, they could be doing exports. They could be doing services outside India. That's not a problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Someone I'd seen a message suddenly saying somebody has raised a hand. Somebody wanted to ask a question.
Hi, sir. Good evening. This is Ajin from Drive Karo.
Hi, Ajin. From where?
From Kochi.
Okay.
Company. Yeah, we are a startup called Drive Karo. Okay, so basically we are into automobile tech platform. So what we were actually trying to get some angel investment. So I just want to know, is there any scope for early stage startup to get angel investment?
So we don't do angel investment, right? I mean, Mount Judi doesn't do angel investment. Mr. Gopal, you want to address that?
Yes. So I think you can contact us, that is Malabar Angel Network. You can contact us. There are few other angel networks. You have the Kerala Angel Network in Kochi itself, and so you can contact the angel networks through Kerala Startup Mission. They will be more than willing to help you get the contacts, and they'll have their own evaluation process and look at your business and look at what to do next in terms of investment. So like Mr. Sherif very clearly mentioned, depending on the stage of your startup, you get funding from multiple sources, right? So if you are still very early stage, then angel investment comes well before the venture capitalists whom Mr. Sherif and Mount Judi represent. So you should contact angel networks in Kerala, and definitely Kerala Startup Mission can help.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you. I think we'll close. Shilan, would you like to close the session with some concluding remarks? Shilan is our chairman of my zone.
Thank you, Mr. Sherif. It has been a very informative and very, I would say, very pragmatic type of session. So typically we don't get these sort of things, because these are some of the insider informations, and we are very, very, very grateful to you since for sharing this thing. And we hope that we will be able to incubate more and more startups. And again, as PKG might have mentioned to you, we are a non-profit system. Okay, so we have got two parts. We have got an incubator, which we got a funding from Startup Mission. It's probably around 5 crore rupees, and it's the second largest technology incubator in Kerala. Okay, so we have around 300 seats, all world class, and with all the ecosystem. And the second part of our organization is the angel network. So we'll be crossing around 50 in the next probably in the next couple of months. So we would like to have your continued association, and if you have as someone was mentioning in this call, if we have startups which we can be part of that. In fact, we have been doing with the Indian Angel Network, Native Leads, and Unicorn Ventures, and all those things. We have been we're doing syndicated things. And we are in the process of learning this one, and our goal is to get more and more NRIs, or more and more HNIs, or people who has got some disposable income to become investors, and which means that when we have local investments, which is coming to a particular geography, the local startup ecosystem will flourish, and startup jobs, it's something which can create an exponential economic impact on that region, and our focus is to create something in Kerala, and that's our aspiration. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and all the best for the things that you do. And I'm confident that Kerala can have a very thriving startup ecosystem. You have Malayalis in very good position in other cities, and once they see the potential for starting things in Kerala, I think a lot of them would probably be more than willing to come and either relocate or be wherever they are and still support the initiatives there.
So thank you, Mr. Sherif, and thank you all the invitees. We'll conclude it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunu.
Thank you.
you. Thank you all.